I love Mortal Kombat. It is my second favorite gaming franchise right behind Final Fantasy, and I feel absolutely spoiled that I get installments in both of these franchises this year. As soon as Mortal Kombat 1 was properly announced, I was so hyped, and I still am. The beta dropped this weekend, and I feel it cleared some time in my schedule to play some. I love my time with the beta, which is saying a lot because I don't typically like betas. Here are my top 10 takeaways from the open beta, which are also my top 10 reasons I'm even more hyped for MK1's mid-September release date. Number 10. The first thing that really stood out to me is Li Mei. She is my clear favorite coming out of the beta because I had the most fun discovering combos with her. To the others' credit, part of what made Li Mei so fun is that she was the easiest, besides Sub-Zero, to discover 30+% combos with, something that is super annoying to do without a training mode. I kind of understand why training modes are absent in open betas, but it does make it pretty hard to truly practice with a character and understand their footsies and combo strings. Li Mei has a clear launcher, clear extenders, and clear enders, much more so than the other 5 characters in the beta. Now, weirdly enough, Kenshi was my least favorite in the beta, which surprises me. I can't wait for the full release so I can finally sit down with each character in the training mode to find the best combos for each. Number 9. Let's go back to 2004. I'm 9, life sucks, and the only shining light in my life is the squishy, chunky sound of muscled dudes and ladies tearing each other and themselves apart. Mortal Kombat Deception is one of my favorite games of all time, and one of my only complaints of the 2.5D era is that Boone and Co. seem to have forgotten all about that 3D era. Kenshi, first appearing in Deadly Alliance, has always gotten love. He has deserved it. I'm not disputing that. I love Kenshi, and I remember my brother really growing attached to the character when we first booted up the game all those years ago. I mean, he's a freaking blind swordsman with telekinetic powers, for Christ's sake. He's been in every single one of the Timeline 2.0 entries, and he returns in the first Timeline 3.0 entry. I love this because Kenshi's cool. But I love that Li Mei, Havoc, and Ashura are finally getting a return to the franchise. The 3D era has kinda gotten shit on constantly since the Timeline 2.0 began, with Bo Raichu and Kenshi being really the only 3D new characters getting some love. Tanya, Quan Chi, and Shinnok too, if you count MK4 as part of the 3D era. I don't really do so because it's really 2.5D just in the 90s. It wasn't fully 3D the way that Deadly Alliance, Deception, and Armageddon are. And I know, 3D characters have shown up in games from time to time, like Li Mei showing up as a cameo character in MKX storyline. But other than that, the 3D era characters have been relegated to cameos and tower endings, like when Shujinko is beat up by Cassie Cage in her MKX ending, or when Onaga is sliced in half during the Kung Lao's MK11 ending. Shujinko and Kung Lao's story in Deception is my second favorite Mortal Kombat storyline, second only to MK9's story mode, which is still the best one in the franchise. There is a lot of potential in the Kamidogu, Onaga's treachery, and Shujinko's foolishness aspects of the Deception storyline that I always wished would be remixed and rebooted into modern Mortal Kombat. Deception is the story I grew up on. It was my introduction to the franchise alongside the 95 movie, and it finally seems that it's getting the love it deserves. This is the aspect that really has gotten me the most hyped for MK1 because it's going to come in to my beginning with the franchise. And I really like that fans like me who started on the PS2 in the PS2 era are finally getting some representation in the games themselves. Number 8. Continuing along the nostalgia lines, I find that the fatality sound effect, the one that dings when one is successfully pulled off, is perfect. And I thought it was a callback to Deception in some ways. The sound effects in the PS2 titles are different. I went back and listened to them and did discover that. I'm not saying that they're the same, but when I first heard it happen in MK1, it unlocked a core memory lost to time. I feel the same about the round 1, 2 ETC announcements and the finish him sound bit. I hope that's what Boone and the team were going after, because that would make me love MK1 even more. Number 7. Back in 1993, Mortal Kombat was taken to Congress over the famous fatalities of the first game, released 1 year prior. A mechanic that was added on a whim, fatalities are a core to the MK experience, and no game would feel right without them. Looking at you, Mortal Kombat vs. DC. Of the few fatalities on display in the beta, MK1 does not disappoint in this regard. The fatalities are absolutely gorgeous, and I can't wait to see all of the rest of the disgusting displays of graphical fidelity on the interiors of each character when it fully releases. Number 6. Back in 2011, it took my 11th grade brain a hot minute to wrap my head around EX abilities. When MK9 came out, the only fighting games I had played were the PS2 MK games, which don't have EX mechanics. A lot of fighting games during this time frame, like from the late 2000s to the early 2010s, were adding EX mechanics for the first time. So I think a lot of people were in that same boat where they had to figure it out. As soon as I had the muscle memory, I was sold on them though, and they became a crucial part of the MK formula. All of the modern titles have this mechanic, but MK11 changed it up a bit. MK1 is returning EX moves to the MK9 MKX style variant, where you press R2 while finishing a special move instead of an L1 press after the move has been committed to, like in MK11. It's not a change I hated per se in 11, but I am glad that they brought the old system back. I speculate that they changed it up because they thought that it would be easier to execute for the player, making things a bit easier for people who have trouble with fighting games. I don't really think that's the right approach. I think the way that Street Fighter 6 does it, Dragon Ball FighterZ, where they will give you easier inputs for the modern controls, is a better way to approach that, but I also don't think MK really needs that, because MK is one of the easy fighting games in comparison to all the other ones. Whatever the case is, and whatever their reasoning for changing it for 11 was, it'll be nice to reuse the muscle memory I've been building up over the last 10 years when MK1 releases. Number 5. It's weird what our muscles remember. I like writing books, and I have a really high typing speed as a result, but I go through months without typing anything at times. I just have this thing where I have multiple hobbies and I go through huge hyperfixation periods where I'm doing that one thing for months on end, and then I take a break and do something else for a little while. Whenever I get the itch to type, however, I'm always stunned by how quickly I'm able to type even without looking at the document I'm typing on. I think playing video games are like that for a lot of people, and for me, Mortal Kombat is like that every time a new one drops. I've played so many games in the franchise, it just feels natural to have a controller in my hand working through all of the new combos. Something about MK1 made my muscle memory do a double take though. It has a mechanic that they have not been introduced to, they being my muscle memory, in years. I swear, it was just like that scene in A New Hope when Vader senses Obi-Wan for the first time since Mustafar. That presence, missing from Mortal Kombat for almost 20 years, that my muscles finally sensed once again. And that mechanic is aerial combos. Coming back with a vengeance from Mortal Kombat Armageddon. I didn't even notice they were in the game for the first hour and a half that I played, and I continued to play the game the same way I did 9, 10, and 11. It wasn't until hour 2 that I looked at the combo list more closely and noticed the huge section devoted to aerial actions. My mind opened, my third eye being uncovered for the first time in ages. Aerial combos are super important in MK. Most of the long combos lead and end in the air. When I started playing around a little more with Li Mei, I found 30+% combos, and I'm hyped to see what I can come up with during the full release. Number 4. While aerial combos aren't new to the franchise, cameo characters are. When I first saw the cameo mechanic, it reminded me a little bit of the tag team assist section of the tag team mechanic from MK9, which, by the way, when are we getting tag team back, Mr. Boone? I would love to get some tag team back in. I would love to play through one of these games with one of my friends, and I think that would be so fun. It's a mechanic that's been gone from the franchise for over 10 years. I really hope that they bring it back sometime. Obviously, the cameo mechanic is not a tag team mechanic, and it has more in common with something in the Capcom Versus titles, sans the tagging in half of the mechanic. It kind of reminded me a little bit how in Skullgirls Second Encore, you can set it up so that you can have a tag team partner, but you don't have to necessarily be able to tag them in. You could just have the assist, or at least I think that's a part of Skullgirls. It's been a long time since I played. What I really like about these types of mechanics, though, is that the cameo characters open up major combo possibilities, and a part of my future fun with the game is going to be experimenting with the cameo fighters, creating long and cool combos. And in MK11, I always liked playing with the loadout of crazy move combos to see what I could come up with, see what I could string together. And I don't think that's going to exist in the same way in MK1, or at least I don't think so. I haven't been following the pre-release footage that closely though, so I could be wrong. I'm okay if it's completely gone. I'm perfectly fine with games being different from one another, and these cameo fighters seem like they're going to be a decent enough replacement. I am concerned that one of them is going to be just objectively the strongest one or the best one, and that everyone will end up using that one assist, but we'll have to see how that goes maybe a month after the formal release. Number 3. Loading screens suck, and we've seen over the course of the 8th and 9th generation how games have started to cover up loading screens more or outright remove them with the advent and implementation of SSDs. The transition between finding an opponent, selecting fighters, and finally getting into a match in MK1 is clean. Instead of loading screens, the pre-battle banter functions as a loading screen for the match. This is much better and is going to make the downtime between matches feel less bad. This is a great change. Number 2. Online games are far more competitive now than they have ever been. And that statement is true in the beta of MK1. People are going to be great from day one at the game, and playing online again is going to be tough. Back when MKX came out, I played ranked daily, and my win percent was 80% for the first month, second month, and the third month, until I ruined it on the invasion boss mechanic. For those of you who don't know, losing an invasion battle on MKX, which is guaranteed because it takes hundreds of attempts to whittle down the boss's health bar, counts as a loss on that particular character in general matchmaking and in their ranked as well. It's a dumb mechanic, and I stopped playing ranked when my 80% win rate dropped to 60, 50, and then 40 after grinding a few invasion bosses down 1 week. I didn't notice until after that was done. After that, I haven't played ranked in MK, and I don't think I'll have the time or ability to get good anymore. Our Street Fighter 6 this year taught me that I think my competitive ranked days in games are done, and I'm okay with that. I fought someone in my second online match as Lee May, who was also 1-0, and well, just look at what I was up against in less than an hour into the game. Now I know, nothing they're doing is particularly insane really. They're only doing like 20-30% combos, and they are reading my very simple combos stuff that I'm trying to do. My point is that I'm not going to have the time to memorize that frame data, and I'm not going to have the time to memorize the best combos for online. So I'll try ranked next month when it comes out, and I'll probably stream it a few times, but I don't really expect that I'm going to get super into ranked, and so I really hope that this game has really good solo modes. And that's it. It's time for the penultimate entry, number 1. The last thing that stuck out about the beta to me was the continued existence of quitalities. These were added in MKX, I believe, and they were a great addition. It's funny, But my first online match in MK1 ended in a fatality from my opponent, and to be honest, it's always so satisfying to see that. Well guys, that's my second top 10 list. I hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, smash that like button for me please. Are you hyped for MK1? Have you been playing the beta? Tell me in the comments below. If you'd like to see more MK1 content when the game releases, sub and ding that bell. Have an awesome day, gamers.